We should not pretend to understand the world only by the intellect. We apprehend it just as much by feeling. Therefore, the judgment of the intellect is at best only a half-truth and must, if it is honest, also admit its inadequacy. Carl Jung. Welcome to the Book of Shadow Work, Chapter 2, A Field Guide to the Emotions. Hello everyone, welcome back to Breathe Faith, Episode 5. Welcome back. Let's get into this book. In doing shadow work, you're going to feel deeply. As much as shadow work involves using memory to root out events and associations you pushed into your unconscious mind in the past, it is not done from an entirely cerebral place. Shadow work is certainly partly a thought process, especially when you first begin. You will make new connections between experiences past and present. You might find yourself better remembering your dreams. You may uncover long-forgotten memories or whole parts of your past. All this is crucial to rewriting your personal history with a more compassionate and fuller understanding of who you were when you were little and who you are today. But shadow work is also an emotional process. And in many ways, emotions have a more fluid connection to the unconscious where the shadow lies. To me, this is shadow work's greatest gift. Get into the habit of allowing yourself to fully feel what comes up and respect its truth, not only when you're doing shadow work, but also in daily life. What I discovered after I had been engaged in shadow work for a while was that staying laser focused on how I felt in my heart and crucially in my body and sitting with it without judgment became a cosmic superpower. Clearing out a more respectful, emotional space for myself gave me honesty. It gave me the strength and resilience to face new challenges with less stress. It gave me easier access to my creativity, inspiration, and deeper parts of my unconscious mind. It pointed the way to decision-making from a more authentic place, because rather than impose an outcome I thought would be good for me, I started searching out how I felt first and giving that primary importance. There's a quiet power in following your path, even when you walk it alone. Honor your journey. My realization that I was in the wrong career wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been able to lean into my feelings through shadow work and trust them to guide me. If I had let my brain and ambitions and what my family wanted for me take over, I'd still be miserable in a confining job that didn't reflect my real gifts and dreams. It's worth it for everyone to learn how to do this, and not just to make better decisions or have more abundant outcomes. Our emotions are much more profound than that. It's not simply a function of us, part of our mammalian social survival skill set to be mastered and controlled. Feelings deserve to remain a little wild, even when they are not sweet. They are the source of our beauty and misery, a required part of being truly alive. Without feeling, sometimes strong feeling, there can be no art, no spirituality, no transcendence. It is the lifeblood that animates our deepest expressions and connects us to the sublime. Allowing yourself to acknowledge and express your feelings, past and present, without judgment, centers you and yourself. It is a profound act of self-honoring. It makes you the subject of your story, not an inconvenience to be overcome. It gives you an express route to your own truth and healing. The intellect can lie. It loves to gaslight. Feelings cannot. They're as important as reading the newspaper to understand how you're really living. But unlike the newspaper in static black and white, they can be elusive, slippery, and require a different kind of perception. They're meant to be experienced in real time, with no cliff notes or shortcuts. It's only when you let them be that you get the benefit of their wisdom. Consider this: we are born sobbing. Since birth, our cries showed not that we were weak, but that we were alive. As we evolved and grew, those cries became rarer and more seldomly expressed. If we're lucky, we learned to release emotion in acceptable or romanticized ways, like singing or painting or dancing. Then those emotions, rather than coming out as sour droplets, were built into something intentional through instruments of our bodies. Vocal cords transform raw feelings into melodies and harmonies. Hands paint pictures and form sculptures. Art and music and dance bring diverse groups of people together in one room or on one lawn in shared trance. The next time you go to an art gallery or watch a recorded live music set on YouTube, watch the crowd. You'll see a business guy with a fanny pack doing the doggy paddle, a kid with oversized sunglasses, a mermaid-haired girl in her flow state. This kind of emotional expression is universal, uniting people across great divides. I like to think of emotion as energy in motion. I promise you, it is better to give this energy room to dance unfettered, to change and evolve, which it is almost always does, rather than try to clamp it down and tame it into silence. When feelings are given their proper place at the center of your lived experience and acknowledged in real time, even if you can't always fully express them in that moment, it becomes a lot easier to handle the challenging ones, like anger, panic, sadness, and fear. It can take practice to get there and can require some originality and method, but once you do, you never turn back. You don't want to. For many people, being asked to dive into their emotions is a terrifying idea. For those who have lived more comfortably in their heads most of their life, it is almost a foreign concept. For those who have done so, as if with no choice, like with neurodivergence, they might have a harder time clearly accessing, expressing, and managing their emotions. So they need to find new pathways that will be theirs alone. Because of how it invites you to experience and claim your feelings and their uniqueness and express them using your own creativity, shadow work is an empowering space to experiment with that. A word of firm advice: when you're doing shadow work, don't barge into your most disturbing memories and vulnerable feeling states with guns blazing. It takes time for the inner self to trust. Don't try to drive straight to the bottom of the well right away. Accessing troubling feelings and memories slowly, delicately, and with great care, so as not to flood yourself with its sensation, is wisdom learned from therapists like Peter Levine, PhD, author of most recently my autobiography of Trauma: A Healing Journey. Levine is the founder of Somatic Experiencing Therapy, a pioneer of body-centered healing. His concern holds for everyone, no matter how resilient or experienced they are when they come to shadow work. whether they have received a diagnosis of trauma or PTSD or not. A light touch is the rule. Taking breaks is the rule. Cultivating empathy for yourself is the rule. For people who have experienced trauma, which includes many of us, their emotional compass may be in a state of shutdown. It could be stuck in the quadrant of panic or rage or terror or sadness, which can be unbearably stressful to live through every day. For people who have suffered serious trauma or experience heavier forms of PTSD, and so need to approach traumatic memories carefully and with containment, it can be helpful to do shadow work with a trained trauma therapist. I agree. For some people, emotions that were unbearable for them to feel or dangerous for them to express might have been muted from their conscious awareness by disassociation or by deadening and disconnecting from the feeling state and essentially going numb. When there's a lot of stress, what happens is we develop a phobic avoidance to sensation or experience, says therapist Esther Goldstein. This includes bright, loud emotions in all their colors, even the joyful ones. Disassociation can be transitory response to stress rather than lived as a steady state. But the more time you spend in it, the more you miss out on a full life. So many people I have spoken to for this book were discouraged from showing their feelings as children. Violet, whom you met in the last chapter, is a classic example of someone whose emotional expression was overwhelming to her mother, who was already in her own state of meltdown. Violet learned to turn the volume down on everything at great cost to her well-being. In doing shadow work, she has gained more access to her full emotional spectrum and has more useful conscious experience watching it work. This makes even the taboo emotions like anger and sadness easier for her to handle because she has developed skills. One of them is a greater capacity for self-love. For Lawrence, 31, who lives in New York City, it was his mother who took up all the emotional space when he was growing up, leaving little room for anyone else. My mom was and still is the heartbeat of the family, he says. If she's doing well, we're all doing well. If she's not doing well, we're going to hear about it. And we're not going to be doing well either. On family vacations, when my parents would fight, my brother would chime in with something stupid, and then they'd just yell at him. So I became the fixer and problem solver in the family. This meant Lawrence had no incentive to recognize and immerse himself in his emotions because he feared they would have just added more fuel to the existing chaos. Left unheeded, his more painful emotions reemerged as anxious vigilance. He was overly tuned into the turmoil in others and driven to try to fix it. It exhausted him and played hell with his romantic relationships. Some people also become the designated feeler for the family, tasked with the job of expressing and cycling through their emotions on the surface, sometimes loudly by siblings or parents who couldn't process their own feelings as fluidly or easily. Kids in this role can take a lot of flack for seeming out of control, when in fact, they are acting as emotional hazard cones, troubling reminders to everyone else that feelings are important and real and always present, no matter how much there might be a conspiracy to ignore them. I was one of those people. Some people are sensitive enough to know what's going on in those around them, that they subtly pick up the feeling states of others and take them on as their own without even knowing they're doing it. This can be stressful and mystifying. During my college years, I found solace in the communal kitchen outside my dorm. The quiet space allowed me to delve into my thoughts, while the floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the world outside. I was cocooned in overwhelming sadness and pain, initially without understanding its origin. Melancholy wrapped around me with inexplicable bouts of tears, leaving me to wonder, where is this coming from? It took a lot of parsing for me to realize that at least some of it was not even mine at all, even if I still felt it as real. I was absorbing the intense emotions of those around me, friends navigating breakups, peers grappling with sleep-deprived stress, and family members confronting serious health issues. This process of inadvertently internalizing others' emotions left me mentally and physically exhausted. Yet it also illuminated the vital need for boundaries and self-care around groups of people. Feeling fully can be inconvenient if you haven't got a place for it. A big crying jag, even if the tears are of appreciation and gratitude rather than sadness or despair, can be physically tiring. It requires some space and time to come back to calm, steady equilibrium. Thankfully, there are some great strategies for safely ridding emotional waves that we're going to explore in this chapter. If you're not experienced with identifying how trusting how you feel, know that this skill can be learned. Whatever your own relationship to emotional states, this chapter exists to demystify them and invite you to not fear them. I want to add a caveat, however. Some feelings, if they've been ignored or denied for too long, can take on outsized power. Some feelings seem as if they'll never go away. If in the course of doing shadow work you find yourself truly overwhelmed and no one technique can help you ground yourself and come to calm, it is important to reach out to another person, like a trusted friend or partner, or if you have the means, a professional therapist. We'll consider when you need to do this in greater detail below. Like the rest of our mammalian brothers and sisters, humans evolved to be emotional creatures because our complex social structures demanded sophistication for us to thrive. We needed to read subtle cues and develop a more finely tuned sense of well-being for our communities to cohere in the face of predators, rival groups, and other stressors. The importance of human emotions is borne out in the sequence of how our brains develop. The emotional center, known as the limbic system, forms after the reptilian brain, responsible for bodily functions, but before the logical and rational parts start to come online. The limbic system is a crucial part of the central nervous system that when a threat or an opportunity is sensed, releases hormones into the bloodstream that trigger feeling states, like a weather vane or a radar sensing beyond us and projecting out through body cues into our families and communities. To a greater or lesser extent, we all grow up learning to take emotional temperatures. Our brains and hearts and souls evolved based on what we got back. If you feel safe and loved, your brain becomes specialized in exploration, play, and cooperation. If you are frightened and unwanted, it specializes in managing feelings of fear and abandonment. Writes Bessel van der Kolk, MD, The Body Keeps the Score. Mind, brain, and body in the transformation of trauma. This is an echo of Jung in a different language. For young, emotions and traumatic memories that were pushed into the shadow often resurfaced as complexes or psychological disorders. Not everyone who does shadow work is dealing with major trauma, but the insight gained from trauma research has implications for emotional processing in general. For shadow work to root deeply, it must include body awareness and bring the body into the process. Peter Levine theorized that under traumatic conditions, physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, car accidents, and other physical injuries, even humiliating moments in public with no escape, the body needs to take meaningful action to flee, fight back, or hide, which a lot of you may know as fight or flight mode. Okay? In the book, in an unspoken voice, How the Body Releases Trauma and Restores Goodness, Levine recounts the experience of being hit by a car while walking in his neighborhood. Using knowledge gleaned from his own research, he was able to monitor his physical responses, breathe deeply, find a calming witness, and allow his body to tremble and shake in the aftermath. All techniques that allowed his heart rate to return to normal levels sooner so he could avoid developing PTSD. Trembling and shaking after a shocking episode are ways the nervous system shakes off the lasting rousing experience and grounds us in readiness for the next encounter with danger, lust, and life, Levine writes. They are animal and instinctual responses, mechanisms that help restore our equilibrium after we have been threatened or highly aroused. They bring us back down to earth, so to speak. This is a specialized clinical way of describing how I would get myself out of states of heightened anxiety when I was younger and suffered from panic attacks. At the dance studio, snarky looks and bullying whispers isolated me, making each class a dreaded ordeal. Just 10 minutes before class, I would hide in the bathroom stall, desperate to escape the others. In the quiet of that stall, I began to explore my anxiety. One day, to shake off the overwhelming fear, I started jumping in the stall. Jumping turned into jumping jacks. Relief. I felt so much relief. The physical movement allowed me to release the stress through my body, gradually helping me build up enough courage to show up in the studio more fully. This technique became a lifeline, helping me cope not just with dance class, but also with other anxiety-inducing situations that developed later in life. Whether it was school or random triggers that surfaced, those moments of physical exertion in the bathroom stall taught me how to reclaim my sense of control. Even if you undergo a disturbing experience that doesn't qualify as major trauma, if you are not able to ground your body by moving, breathing, and recentering your awareness, your resilience, sense of okayness, and belonging in the world have been diminished, writes Levine. This same wisdom applies when revisiting painful memories, which in extreme cases can be somatically re-experienced at the same time. Van der Kolk and Levine focus mostly on trauma, but more generally, they present two of the most intelligent, concrete, and complete arguments that the esoteric woo-woo idea of body intelligence, a phrase you might have heard in yoga class and then forgotten, is a fundamental scientific truth backed up by tens of thousands of hours of clinical research. This has great implications if you are someone who has a hard time assessing your emotions or understanding them. An awareness of your body, which is so much easier to cultivate, is your golden ticket to gaining clarity on your feelings. Knowing when you are troubled and where in your body you feel it, and developing the instinct to breathe and ground when you're triggered are crucial steps in gaining emotional maturity that happens step by step and gets stronger and more solid over time. Focusing on your body with curiosity as it experiences emotional states also takes you out of overly moralizing your experience, which is key when accessing your shadow. Keep in mind that when people talk about embodiment, there are generally two types. The first is when you're triggered, threatened, feeling adrenaline, vigilance, or pain. This could be from a first-hand experience or remembering one. The fight or flight reflex is triggered in your amygdala, deep inside your limbic brain. This is the kind of sensation that Levine and Van der Kolk would counsel benefits from physical expression to discharge in the moment. The second, which is one of the goals of successful shadow work, is when you're peacefully aware of your body and all that you do. When you're in your body, your senses are more available and your wiser, calmer self is in the driver's seat. This kind of awareness doesn't come from stress. It helps relieve it. Therapies like EMDR and brain spotting, which both engage the field of vision as part of healing trauma and include memory, visualization, and emotion, use both kinds of body awareness. I consider them both as types of shadow work. In a typical situation, a therapist will ask their patient to turn their body to confirm what material needs to come up for healing. Usually, this happens by thinking of the core issue and placing attention on the location and level of their physical agitation at the same time. They're asked to target and describe the feeling of the somatic level with no attachment to the story of how it got there. Maybe it's butterflies in the stomach or a sense of tension around the neck and shoulders. After some grounding protocols, the patient then either moves their eyes back and forth in rapid succession while replaying the traumatic memory or focuses on a fixed point in space while letting the mind wander into active imagination. In both instances, being asked to stay in awareness of physical sensation throughout. Right before the session is over, the patient compares their present level of agitation to how they felt at the start of the session to gauge its effectiveness and help the therapist navigate further treatment. At this point, it's worth getting a little more specific on individual emotions themselves. Unscientifically, based on my own experience and what I've learned from speaking to journalers and experts, I'm including a list of the most common ones that arise when people first start to do shadow work. Most of the time, these feeling states are transitory and relatively harmless when you know how to carry them. Next, you'll find a list of the most common emotions you experience as you make progress, followed by some tips on how to pinpoint and navigate through the tough stuff. I've categorized both lists by whether the emotion sits high on the emotional vibration scale or low, and whether it tends to be generally light or dense in the body. In the Zenful Note app, this structured approach is part of the emotion check-in form and is designed to support you in tracking your emotional journey with clarity and intention. This categorization helps you quickly recognize the nature of how you feel and understand its impact on your well-being. Nothing here is mutually exclusive. No matter where you are in life, you will wend your way through most of these emotions at some point. Keep in mind that my definitions may not be yours. The places in my body I'm mentioning that correspond to my emotional states may not correspond to yours. You may find completely different results. If so, that's great. I encourage you to make your own map, write your own definitions, and treasure them. Now, guys, here in the book, there is a QR code where you can scan and download the Zenful Note app. So let's get back to it. It says common emotions that arise when starting shadow work. We're going to read the low vibration and dense category. Okay. So A, apprehension, future projecting, expecting the negative, even the worst. I often feel it as butterflies in my stomach or tightness around my neck and shoulders. B, annoyance or irritation. The short fuse, the sharp instant reply can be like a snake bite to anyone in its path. When you're managing internal and external conflicts, irritation often strikes. It feels high wire and electric to me and comes with tension around my eyes and forehead. C, jealousy, either simmering or on full boil. Jealousy is feeling unbalanced over how someone else feels or spends their time, which are matters that are usually outside your control. This feeling, which I usually feel in the pit of my stomach, comes coupled with a sense of being insulted, overlooked, misunderstood, and unseen. The mental churn connected to jealousy needs to find peace as much as the bruised heart. D, generalized stress or overwhelm. You don't know why you're so exhausted or your resources so low. Maybe your mind is working on 5 levels at once and you feel like you're one step away from crashing. You can't bring all of yourself to anything because you're so all over the place. This can be a smokescreen to avoid focusing on something you don't want to look at. But it's also important to gauge of how much gas you really have in your tank. So, as with all these emotional responses, don't blow it off or wave it away. E, anxiety. You feel like a rabbit being chased by hounds. The world is moving too fast. Your thoughts are racing, along with your breath and heart. There might be a gnawing feeling in your stomach, and you might feel dizzy too, even if some part of you knows an anxious thought process isn't real. The rest of you gets caught up in it anyway. Memories can often cause anxiety in the present, as can projecting your attention too far into the unknown future. I've suffered a lot of anxiety in my life. F, dread, a sense of impending doom, dark and foreboding. Something terrible is out there in the future, just out of reach, both mysterious and familiar at the same time. I feel this one in my feet, in my stomach, and in my heart and throat. G, sadness, a bottomless well of tears that threatens to overflow. The heart aches, whether for yourself or for someone else. Sadness is profound, but it is also soft. It hangs around my neck and shoulders and heavy in my heart. H, anger. It's crispy, it's hot, it's kinetic, it's fiery. It is often socially unwelcome, from women especially. Anger feels like one of the hardest emotions to contain in the body. In an ideal world, it needs yelling, pillow punching, or growling to get it out. Some people carry it inside them their whole lives. The incentive to ignore it is so great. It is a challenging one to feel safe with, but if expressed responsibly, it is powerful, like a snorting, bucking bronco worth learning to ride. I, disappointment. Sigh, this again. It always happens like this. When events or people don't live up to my ideals, it feels like 300 extra pounds on my shoulders. Breath comes slowly, colors lose their intensity, tears well up. I am 6 years old again, and someone forgot to pick me up from school. I feel small, and rueful because it's a feeling based on negative familiarity. When you do shadow work, it's exceptionally common to revisit disappointments you felt when you were young. J, fear. This one is impossible to ignore. Your heart rate goes up, your stomach rumbles, you might physically shake. It's another future projected emotion, often called based on projections, bustered by living experience. For many, it's so intolerable, they turn to substances to turn down the volume. Fear can be one of the harder emotions to allow yourself to feel without self-criticism. If what you fear seems out of proportion to events, or if you're used to being tough and independent, it's okay. Most people experience some form of fear almost every day. While that fear can be limiting, it can also be life-saving. K, resentment. In doing shadow work, you may develop a new understanding of how you have been treated in the past. Getting clear on how someone has hurt you, maybe repeatedly, means passing through resentment. It's anger and discontentment directed at someone close that you often keep covert for the sake of peacekeeping. Unrecognized, it can poison close relationships. Recognized, it can be cleared. Okay, so now we are going into the second list, which is common emotions that result from doing shadow work. A, joy, and also these are high vibration and light. This one is best when it sneaks up on you, though I'll take it anytime. It's buoyant laughter, lightness, effervescence, bouncing, fluttering. It's a puppy when its person comes home. I found joy in surprising places after I started doing shadow work, most often in nature. I feel joy like a wave of bright golden light that goes through me from head to toe. B is aliveness. This is the steady hum of a thriving organism. You're switched on, ready, and in easy cruising gear. I recognize aliveness when I can feel the energy in my hands and feet, and my heart feels content, and I am curious and alert. Often, I find myself laughing more easily. C, playfulness. When your inner child is seen and heard and respected, this precious feeling is much more abundant. In moments of play, we lose our sense of time, letting go of inhibitions and becoming fully immersed in the joy and wonder of the present. D, hopefulness. Like disappointment, this is both a mental state and a feeling one. It's born of faith and an openness to the unknown. It came more readily to me when I started seeing myself responding to triggers differently. I started to believe in positive possibilities in a way that I could feel in my bones. Amen. Yes. E is curiosity. When we are centered and whole, we are naturally curious. Curious about other people and their experiences. Curious about parts of ourselves we have yet to know. This sense of wonder keeps us engaged with life, always eager to learn and evolve. It builds on itself. F is passion. When we're not spending so much time white-knuckling through pain, we have a lot more available energy to engage with things that rev us up. I regained my lost passions from doing shadow work and formed new ones. This book is one of the results. I hear that. G, compassion. The extension of love and understanding to yourself or to another. Compassion is rich and warm like honey. It facilitates intimacy and connection and healing like little else. H, anger that is now owned and accepted and appropriately directed. Yes, our sometimes inconvenient friend shows up on this list too. When anger is acknowledged, accepted, and given its proper place, like in response to a real injury, it can be a righteous protector. Appropriate anger can help you set crucial boundaries and stand up for yourself. Amen. And that is one of the reasons why Breathe Faith established. So I agree. I is contentment. Sometimes I look around me and take stock of what I've been able to overcome and build. And I just feel glad to be alive. I'm not trying to get more. I'm simply good right here, right now. Contentment feels like a belly full of warm oatmeal and the smell of my mother's perfume. J, gratitude. This emotion is a life extender like nothing else. When I make a list every morning of what I'm grateful for, I feel a spark in my heart and a glow that extends outward into the room. There are many creative ways to find your way through the wild, sometimes unfamiliar fields of all these feelings. Let's start with the basics of how to handle upsetting triggers informed by Van der Kolk's and Levine's imperatives. Deep belly breathing is the number one to go to for all states of upset. Ideally, you get so used to doing this that it becomes a reflex, and you start doing it naturally when you are distressed. If you don't, have a practice currently where you do it every day. Establish one, even if it's only setting a timer and belly breathing with your eyes closed for 5 minutes. Alfred, 29, from just west of Dallas, is neurodivergent and found dance to be a crucial component in accessing and expressing his emotions. If somebody asked me before, moving emotions through my body was near impossible, he recalls. It was like this huge wall because I couldn't intellectualize something. I couldn't understand it. Dance really liberated me because I could exist in any energy I wanted. It deepened my relationship with different raw energies within me, things I couldn't verbalize or conceptualize concretely. It had a cascading effect with how I interacted with myself and expressed myself. I was an athlete before, but I could dance really close to my heart. I feel like that brought out something very primal and raw in me. Lawrence found a similar trail to effective shadow work through meditation and running. When he divorced at age 30 and got laid off from a high-performance job at the same time, he realized that sessions with his therapist needed to be supplemented with a deep solo inner journey. As someone who suffered from anxiety made worse by years of abusive bullying in junior high and high school, I don't think I could have done it if I didn't know how to ground myself first, he says. When I was younger, I go from being shoved against lockers and having bottles of water emptied onto my head to going into English class all wet, having to pretend like it didn't happen. I had to compartmentalize and just get good grades. I never learned how to feel my feelings. I never learned how to cry. I could cry watching a sad movie, but I never just sat and cried. It almost felt as if the emotional pipes in my body were not flowing. I was suppressing a ton, smoking so much weed. The high feeling clogged the parts of me that I needed to listen to the most. Lawrence started meditating before he would do his daily journaling. Things were so heavy for me, and I had to get to a place mentally where I wasn't just thinking about 1,000 things at once. In addition to the calm, steady breathing that accompanied his mindfulness practice, he trained for a marathon and used guided meditations from Headspace that came with his membership in the Nike Run Club app. They encouraged a similar mindful approach to his body as he put one foot in front of the other every day. There was this voice literally coming through the headphones saying, "How are you feeling right now in this moment?" As his mind-body awareness deepened, Lawrence started a morning practice that he continues to do every day. As soon as I wake up, I take my journal, put the date at the top of the page, and then I write, I feel blank, and just sit for a second and try to physically feel my emotions. It might start with, I feel sad, and then any other feelings I could sense in my body, no matter how contradictory they seemed. And then I'd say, I think it's about this, and he'd allow himself to free associate. From there, he could start his day from a position of emotional awareness and acceptance. This exercise that drama coach Juliana Rees mentioned in the previous chapter is worth diving into in this context because it's one that anyone, acting student or not, can use to get a more 360-degree view and consciously embodied experience of their emotions. It's a little more structured and detailed than Lawrence's morning journaling, but it's in the same spirit. Rees describes it like this. I ask my students to identify for themselves where each one feels an emotion. For example, grief or sadness or jealousy or shame in their bodies, one emotion at a time. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, shut out the outside noise, and turn on your sensors. Maybe it's the throat or the stomach or somewhere else. Then I'll say, okay, that place. Is it hot? Is it cold? Does it feel metallic? They keep going until each student can clearly describe the emotion in question objectively, using the most descriptive language possible. You're getting them to be able to sit inside of a really distressing feeling and understand it in all of its crystalline complexity, she explains. Your purpose in doing this exercise isn't to perform or reproduce emotions like Rees' students, but it is a great way to map and create a detailed and visceral inventory of something that may have just seemed misty or vague before. Can you associate a sound to it, a taste or color? Get out some colored pencils and draw pictures of them if you like. Pay attention to the colors you're drawn to. What associations do the emotions have for you? Whether earth-shaking revelations come to you in this process isn't the point, though they might. The point is to slow down, marinate in, and comprehend an emotion inside out with curiosity. As you let your mind make creative symbolic associations with physical sensations and felt emotions, you start to know that it's safe to explore there without rushing through it. There are emotions we encounter inside shadow work. Then there are those that come upon us when we're out in the world, doing our thing, a walking target for triggers. If you're falling into distress from any difficult emotion while you're around people or situations where you can't fully express yourself, try to change the scenery. Get outside the classroom or cubicle or party, even if just for a few moments until you're back to better balance. Every day of your life that you've been in the company of other people, somebody has gotten up and left the room, and you most likely didn't give it a second thought. You can almost always take space for yourself without having to make a big deal out of it. What if you're in emotional distress that is lasting much longer than the moment or longer than a few days in a row? What if doing shadow work throws you into prolonged despair, anger, or fear? An emotional state that persists despite external conditions can be a sign you're unable to regulate on your own. If you're experiencing something like this, I encourage you to use a journal. To be fair, I encourage everyone to journal, but especially here. Slowing down and forming sentences that are focused on your present feelings can be soothing. But equally importantly, if you notice that you are going to extreme emotional places too often to maintain your present life, you can share what you've been journaling with a friend or a professional for a valuable feedback, perspective, and support. Write whenever you can find the time and space, but especially in the morning and at the end of the day. If you've had a big emotional release that day, ask yourself how you feel now. Do you feel relief? Or have you sunk further into misery? If anxiety is a problem for you, at the end of the day, how much time did you spend in panic versus out of it? What do you feel compelled to do after a big emotional plunge? Are you thrown back onto destructive habits? Do you want to drink, smoke, numb out, escape? Seriously, how often? Prolonged anger needs real strategies for containment. Are you acting out physically on yourself, like punching walls or hurting yourself? Or on others, like starting fights or going overboard, physically pushing your kids? If you are going into deeper despair, is it consistently getting in the way of work or your connection to others? Have you entertained thoughts of suicide? This is all valuable information to help you discern if you need to seek help. As I explained earlier, I came to shadow work because I was going through a prolonged depression. One reason I was able to engage in this self-injury without a therapist is that I have a caring family network and a supportive partner. I am lucky that way. I was able to develop compassion and empathy for myself despite low levels of available serotonin at the time. I want to underline here that you don't have to be a hero. If you are legitimately overwhelmed by the emotions that arise in doing shadow work, if you find yourself experiencing panic attacks or crushing lows that don't subside, put your journal down for a while and reach out. I am an ambassador to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is an excellent resource for support and guidance. Consider exploring local therapy options, online therapy services, and mental health apps to help you navigate your inner self in real time and find the clarity you need. Remember, seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. We've created many boxes to organize our lives, from cars to buildings, highways to classrooms, textbooks, smartphones, the list goes on. We've prioritized categorizing in systems at the cost of our own unique emotional depth. A huge red flag for Jung as he observed the march of history into modernity in the 20th century. Meanwhile, corporations bid for our attention every day through advertisements, embedding billboards into our minds, turning our focus into a currency they control. Sometimes we just need to reclaim our time to play. If this notion doesn't come easily or naturally to you, here are some suggestions. 1. Watch the cartoons you loved as a kid or the show you weren't allowed to as a kid. The thrillers, spicy Spanish telenovelas, anything. 2. Eat dessert first. 3. Explore a new genre of music that you haven't listened to before and create an experimental playlist of the gems you find. The guilty pleasure genres I've added to mine include melodic techno, neoclassical, and organica, which is house music with African and Latin American influence. 4. Celebrate something mundane every day. 5. Collect something random but meaningful to you. Someone on my For You page on TikTok collects Pokemon perfume bottles. I love that. 6. Indulge yourself in home decor. If you can afford the soft bed sheets, the squishy pillows, the hand-carved antique store vase, get them. 7. Take a mental health day from work when you need it. 8. Download a game on your device. One that helps you with memory, attention, and problem solving. Something that makes you brain stretch. 9. Dance outrageously, even if you're alone in your room, especially if you're alone in your room. 10. Offer a service for non-monetary reasons. I know people who offer ride shares just to connect with other humans. 11. Plan a solo trip to a place you've always wanted to visit, or if that's a stretch, plan a solo trip to that inviting coffee shop in your town. Allow yourself to engage in these small, mighty acts of self-expression and exploration. you will see how it gradually reconnects you with your true self. Don't be afraid to explore, feel, and simply be. The steps you take toward embracing your individuality and emotional freedom will allow you to go backward, inward, reversing the direction society has set for you. It's a shift from running away from yourself to running toward yourself. Close your eyes, open your arms, and embrace the full spectrum of what it means to be you. And that wraps up chapter 2. You guys, I have to say, I'm glad. I know I said it in the last episode. I am so glad I purchased this book. I say that to say, since I have already been doing my own personal shadow work, and by me getting into chapter 2, I can see how much I have already been doing has been very beneficial to me, especially with the list. I couldn't resonate with the low vibration and dense list anymore, but everything she put on the second list for the high vibration and light, I resonated with all of that. It just goes to show how important it is to really put yourself first. And it is okay. It is okay to step outside of societal norms. It is okay to laugh. It is okay to cry. It is okay to wear match shoes. It's okay to wear patchwork jeans. It's okay to do what you want to do for you. Shadow work, it takes you to a place for that inner child to heal that inner child that you're still battling. Like she said, watch the shows that you weren't allowed to. And that goes in other aspects of life too, right? You can't wear those shoes because I can't afford them. Go buy those damn shoes. Go buy those shoes you wanted as a kid that your mom didn't buy for you because she couldn't afford it or she just didn't want to. The point of shadow work is to make you love you. It's to find you again. And I'm so glad that I've started. I'm curious to see how much I have been doing on my own as I progress further into this book with you guys. But I have to tell you, I resonate with a lot of these things. We are living in a time to where people are so judgmental. People just want to keep up with what's going on in the world. They don't care if it's not who they truly are. They just want to be validated by people. And let me tell you, that's a dangerous game to play. It is a dangerous game when you are only operating and you're only existing in this world to just let other people say you're doing a good job or you're such and such. Who cares? Who cares what people thinks? Who cares? You do not exist for them. You exist for you, honey. And Holy Spirit, thank you for coming to me with this download as I can help save a life. Leave people alone who try to tear you down. Leave people who always have something negative to say to you. Leave people who always downplay your dreams. Leave people who observe you, who befriend you, who come around you just to watch you, just to spy, just to learn you, just to tear you down. When God isolates you, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about the ways of this world. And you learn that there are way more wicked people out here than there are good. And when you choose the wicked ways of this world, you tend to shrink yourself. Because everyone wants to be an influencer. Everyone wants to be known for this. Everyone wants to be the top of this. That is your carnal mind thinking for you. Don't worry about what other people have to say. This is your life. You live it. You do what makes you happy. You do what makes you twinkle. It doesn't matter. Just be honest with yourself and be honest with other people. Don't lie to people to keep people around. Be you. Be you. So that is going to wrap up this episode of Breathe Faith, where we breathe and release, and we pray and we operate in obedience, because that is what God ordained us to be and do. I am your host, Annie Renee. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. I hope you have a great day.